On August 29, 1949, in the desert of Kazakhstan, the Soviet Union detonated its first atomic bomb. American intelligence had predicted this moment would come in 1953, maybe 1955. Some said the Soviets, devastated by war, their industry in ruins, might never build one at all. They were off by 4 to 6 years, and here's why. That Soviet bomb wasn't just similar to the one America dropped on Nagasaki. It was, in its essentials, a copy, built from stolen blueprints. This is the story of how that happened. It involves a physicist who confessed over a cup of tea, a 19-year-old Harvard prodigy who was never arrested, and 5 young men recruited at Cambridge University in the 1930s. One of them rose so high that he ended up running the Department of British Intelligence, responsible for catching Soviet spies, while being a Soviet spy. His own colleagues called him the most brilliant officer of his generation. Moscow called him Agent Stanley, and by the time anyone proved anything, he was giving press conferences from Moscow. Let's start at the beginning, with a recruitment strategy so patient it took a decade to pay off. Cambridge, the early 1930s. The Great Depression is grinding capitalism's reputation into dust. Fascism is rising in Germany and Italy, and to many young intellectuals, Western governments seem too weak or too sympathetic to stop it. To a certain kind of idealistic student, the Soviet Union looks like the only power seriously opposing Hitler. Soviet intelligence noticed, and they did something genuinely clever. Instead of recruiting officials who already had secrets, they recruited students, young men who had nothing, and they told them to wait, don't protest, don't join the Communist Party. In fact, publicly renounce your left-wing views. Then join the establishment, the Foreign Office, the intelligence services. Rise, we'll be in touch. The recruits history remembers as the Cambridge Five. Kim Philby, charming, stammering, brilliant. He would join MI6. Donald Maclean, a diplomat's son, he would join the Foreign Office. Guy Burgess, flamboyant, chaotic, alcoholic, and somehow always employed near secrets. Anthony Blunt, an art historian, he would join MI5 during the war and later become the Queen's own art curator. And John Cairncross, a working-class Scot, the outsider of the group, he would end up at the one place with secrets bigger than anyone's, Bletchley Park. None of them were paid meaningful money. They spied out of conviction, which made them almost impossible to detect. Because counterintelligence in that era looked for greed, and there was none to find. Within 10 years, this patient bet paid off in ways even Moscow struggled to believe. Literally, the Soviets received so much gold from these five that at one point they suspected it had to be a British trick. Here's where the atomic story begins, and it's earlier than most people think. 1940, 1941, Britain, not America, is leading atomic research. A secret group called the Maud Committee reaches a huge conclusion. A uranium bomb is not science fiction. It's feasible, buildable, within a few years. John Cairncross is working as private secretary to Lord Hankey, a minister with access to exactly this kind of material. Through Cairncross, the substance of Britain's early atomic conclusions reach Moscow. Historians still debate exactly which documents, but Soviet intelligence archives confirm it. Atomic intelligence from London, arriving as early as the autumn of 1941. Think about what that means. Stalin had strong evidence the bomb was possible before the Manhattan Project even formally existed. So when the Soviets launched their own program in 1943, under the physicist Igor Kurchatov, they weren't guessing. They were following a map. And Cairncross wasn't done. Later, at Bletchley Park, he passed decrypted German military intelligence to Moscow, including material credited with helping the Red Army prepare for the Battle of Kursk, the largest tank battle in history. But documents saying a bomb is possible don't tell you how to build one. For that, The Soviets needed someone inside the most secret facility on Earth. They ended up with at least 3. Los Alamos, New Mexico. The Manhattan Project's inner sanctum. So secret that its scientist mail was censored, and its existence didn't appear on any map. The Cambridge 5 never worked here. This part of the theft belonged to others. And it's important to tell it straight because the 2 spy rings are often blurred together. Klaus Fuchs, a German-born physicist who fled the Nazis, became a British citizen and was sent to Los Alamos as part of the British delegation. He was also a committed communist. From 1941 to 1949, he handed the Soviets the crown jewels, the design principles of the plutonium implosion bomb, the actual geometry, the calculations. Historians who have studied the Soviet archives rate Fuchs as the single most valuable atomic spy of the war. Theodore Hall, a Harvard physics prodigy, recruited to Los Alamos at 18. At 19, he approached the Soviets on his own initiative. No one recruited him. He believed an American nuclear monopoly was dangerous for the world. So he independently confirmed and supplemented Fuchs's implosion data. And here's the part that sounds impossible. Hall was never prosecuted. The evidence against him came from decrypted Soviet cables, so secret the United States refused to reveal them in court. He lived quietly until the decrypts were declassified in 1995, and he died a free man in 1999. David Greenglass, an army machinist at Los Alamos. He passed sketches of bomb components through his brother-in-law, Julius Rosenberg, who ran a spy ring in New York. In 1953, Julius and his wife Ethel were executed for it, the only atomic spies ever put to death. And the record here demands honesty. Julius's espionage is confirmed by the decrypted cables, but Ethel's role was minor, and decades later, Greenglass admitted he had lied under oath about her involvement to protect his own wife. Her execution remains one of the most contested acts of the entire Cold War. So, how much did all this actually matter? Soviet scientists were brilliant. Kurchatov's team would have gotten there eventually. The scholarly consensus, based on post-Soviet archives, is that espionage accelerated the Soviet bomb by roughly 1 to 2 years. Some estimates run higher. And the first Soviet bomb was deliberately built as a close copy of the American design. Beria, Stalin's feared secret police chief, didn't trust an original Soviet design for the first test. Why risk failure when you have the answer key? Now, here's where the Cambridge 5 come back in. Because stealing the bomb is one thing. Getting away with it required something else. Men inside Western intelligence who could warn every spy before the net closed. And that's exactly what happened next. While Fuchs passed physics, Kim Philby was performing one of the most audacious infiltrations in intelligence history. He joined MI6 during the war and rose fast. In 1944, he was appointed head of Section 9, the department dedicated to countering Soviet espionage. Read that again. The man in charge of catching Soviet spies in Britain was Agent Stanley of the Soviet Secret Service. Every operation against Moscow crossed his desk. Agents Britain sent behind the Iron Curtain, including armed fighters parachuted into Albania in the late 1940s, walked straight into ambushes. Many died. Philby had told Moscow they were coming. Meanwhile, Donald Maclean had become first secretary at the British Embassy in Washington. He sat on the committees coordinating British and American atomic policy. He couldn't give Moscow bomb physics, but he gave them something arguably scarier: the strategic picture, American uranium stocks, policy intentions, how many bombs the West could actually field. This let Stalin calibrate exactly how hard he could push in the early Cold War, because he knew America's nuclear arsenal was far smaller than its bluster. And Anthony Blunt? Inside MI5 during the war, he passed along counterintelligence and helped the ring stay one step ahead of suspicion. Then he left to become the royal family's art curator, a Soviet agent, knighted working steps from the throne. But it couldn't last. In 1949, American codebreakers finally cracked something that should have been uncrackable. The project was called VENONA, and it lit a fuse under all 5 men. Soviet cables were encrypted with one-time pads, mathematically unbreakable, if used correctly. But during the chaos of the war, Soviet cipher clerks made a fatal shortcut. They reused pages. American cryptanalysts at the VENONA project spent years exploiting that single mistake. By 1949, the decrypted fragments revealed a Soviet source inside the wartime atomic program. The trail led to Klaus Fuchs. Confronted in early 1950, Fuchs confessed with eerie calm. He served 9 years of a 14-year sentence. Then he moved to East Germany and went back to physics. 9 years for the implosion bomb. Fuchs's confession unraveled the American ring. His courier, Harry Gold, then Greenglass, then the Rosenbergs. But VENONA also pointed to another source, codename Homer, someone inside the British Embassy in Washington. Month by month, the suspect list narrowed toward Donald Maclean. And who was MI6's liaison officer in Washington with full access to the VENONA investigation? Kim Philby. Philby warned Moscow. In May 1951, just days before Maclean's scheduled interrogation, Guy Burgess collected him by car. The 2 men caught a ferry to France and vanished. They surfaced 5 years later at a press conference in Moscow. The escape saved Maclean, but it burned Philby. Everyone could see the tip-off had come from someone close to the investigation. He was interrogated, forced out of MI6, but never charged. The evidence was inadmissible. VENONA was too secret for any courtroom. In 1955, the British government publicly cleared him. He even went back to working for MI6 informally, undercover as a journalist in Beirut, until 1963, when a fresh confession from an old friend finally cornered him. Offered immunity in exchange for cooperation, Philby chose door number 3. One night in January 1963, he slipped aboard a Soviet freighter and defected. He lived in Moscow until his death in 1988. He received state honors there, and by most accounts, a lonely, alcohol-soaked retirement. 2 defected, 1 fled. That leaves 2 more, and their endings are stranger than the escapes. In 1964, an American named Michael Straight, recruited by Blunt at Cambridge decades earlier, finally told the FBI everything. Confronted, Anthony Blunt confessed in full, in exchange for total secrecy and immunity. For 15 more years, he remained Sir Anthony Blunt, the royal art historian, his treason known to intelligence chiefs and hidden from the public. Until 1979, when Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher named him in Parliament. He was stripped of his knighthood and died in disgrace in 1983. John Cairncross also confessed in 1964. Also quietly, he lived abroad in obscurity and wasn't publicly named as the 5th man until 1990, when a Soviet defector confirmed it. Cairncross admitted passing secrets, but he insisted to his death that he had only ever meant to help an ally fight Hitler. Historians still argue about how much to believe him. So let's do the final count. 5 spies, decades of access to the West's deepest secrets, and the total number of days any of them spent in prison, 0. So, how much did the theft really matter? Let's be honest about it. Soviet physicists were world-class. Espionage didn't give them the bomb. It gave them speed and certainty. It cut years off the timeline and removed every dead end. The best archival research puts the acceleration at 1 to 2 years. Some estimates go higher, and those years mattered enormously. The Soviet test in 1949, years before Washington expected it, shocked America into a crash program for an even bigger weapon, the hydrogen bomb. The arms race that defined the next 4 decades was off and running. The Cambridge Five's damage went beyond atoms. They compromised Western operations. They doomed agents in the field, and perhaps most corrosively, they shattered trust between allies. For years afterward, American intelligence quietly wondered how much it could tell the British at all. But here's the closing thought, and it's the real lesson of this story. The greatest intelligence catastrophe in Western history wasn't caused by supervillains. It was caused by true believers, recruited young, told to be patient, and hidden in plain sight by one simple assumption, that men of the right schools, the right accents, and the right clubs could not possibly be traitors. Every secret system has a blind spot. Theirs was trust. The sources for every claim in this video are in the description, including the declassified VENONA decrypts, which you can read yourself online for free. And if you want the story of the spy ring's strangest cousin, the army that fought Hitler with inflatable tanks, that video is coming next. Subscribe so you don't miss it.